Hello, YouTube. This is Uncle Bear turning in again for another video, just brain dumping. Kind of want to talk about in this video the dangers of teaching improperly in our educational system when it comes to racial issues. And before I start, this isn't me playing some victim or, trying to be like, oh, woe is me, the black man, or anything like that. Because the truth is, I know why we as a black race struggle. It has nothing to do with our color. But I did want to talk about the issues in terms of just what I've seen in my personal life and how we kind of deceive ourselves by how we teach our children, whether you're black or white. So I remember I was talking to just a person. She was an Alabama fan, and obviously I'm a Tennessee fan, so we're kind of talking about football a little bit. But I knew this was someone that I really couldn't fully engage with because obviously she has some things in her heart that Um, I just wasn't trying to change or fight in terms of racial stuff. But basically, in the middle of that conversation, her argument was is that there will always be racism. And I thought about what she said, and I was like, "You're right." But that's just because of what mama and daddy and your teachers and politicians and religious leaders teach you. That's why. So that was just my 2 cents as far as like the interaction with her, and it got me thinking about just those things. But Tennessee passed a law a few years ago that basically outlawed or prohibited the teaching of the KKK history in schools. And people believe in certain things. Some people call it heritage and all that. Me, I thought that that was very dangerous because obviously the KKK wasn't just about holding up heritage. It was like they did some things to people. And I try to talk about these with other close friends in the past, but they never really want to admit it or act like I don't know what I'm talking about. So I figure I tell my mother's story. This is a personal story. You're not gonna find this in the history books, but my mother won homecoming queen. She was the first African American homecoming queen in Spring Hill, Tennessee, back in the day. And it was really weird as far as like how she got voted in. But basically she won, and as a retaliation, people from that school at the time went to one of my grandmother's properties out in the country, and they burnt down that house in Theta, Tennessee. They burnt down their house and they burnt down the church, I believe, out of retaliation for my mom winning homecoming queen. So I'm gonna stop there for a second, kind of get back to that story in a minute, just to kind of talk about a little bit later. But um, when I was growing up, I believe I was in the kindergarten, somewhere around there. I was going to a Christian school at the time, and I had this white classmate. His name was Bucky. Now at that time, Bucky was probably like one of my better friends that I've had. Like I just had a good time with him every time we went to school, and we played together and didn't seem to have any issues. But one day, me and because it was a Christian school, me and Bucky were kind of talking about God. And I remember distinctly that Bucky told me, he said, "Black people can't go to heaven." And I knew that he meant it because I could just see the look on his face, and he meant what he said. Now, as a kid, I was kind of like confused because I grew up in church at that time and all my life, but at that time I was like, "Well, I don't want to go to hell. Like, I want to go to heaven. Is it true that black people can't go to heaven?" And so I remember going to my mom and asking her that, not realizing that that was a racial issue and not the truth. And I remember my mom just kind of crying and being upset about it because it was just something that she knew what was happening, and she knew that these teachers or somebody was teaching something wrong that they shouldn't have had. I'm at that same school. I have a younger sister. She came home one day with just blood all over her t-shirt, and the teachers acted like they didn't know what happened to her. So it was just a lot of questionable things that happened at that school, and I can go on and on about different stories I experienced. But um, I guess as I got older, my question, as I was thinking about my friend while he knew that information, is why would you know that type? Why would you have that way of thinking at 5 or 6 years old? about black people going to hell because somebody taught you that. So that kind of regurgitated back to what I was thinking about the Alabama lady who basically said that there will always be racism. And I was like, yeah, as long as it's being taught, and usually it's being taught because of a sense of pride. Um, I keep hearing people say that that's heritage. That's heritage. Well, I mean, I've been making videos about you know a lot of heritage lately, and I think that we need to discuss that as far as like what we really believe in. But um, I remember like his mother, Bucky's mom. Again, me and Bucky were cool. I didn't really have any personal issues with them. But I remember Bucky's mom was really mean to me back in the day. Like she would say, there was one particular story where we were doing like a kids play or something like that, like the three little Goldilocks and the three bears or something like that. And I was like the Papa Bear, and she just, I kept getting one of my lines wrong or something like that, and she just looked at me and said, "What are you, stupid?" And I was, I'm 6 years old. Like, wow, why would a teacher say that? Because in the school systems, what they do is, at least, I can't speak for everywhere, but what I was experiencing was that they basically like to get to the young black males early, um, at a young age. It's called buck breaking at a young age. If I can break you down and make you feel stupid or worthless at a young age, I got your mind. And on top of that, I'm teaching the other people, including the black women or black girls, to disrespect you too. That you're not a leader, that you're not worth anything. So, and the reason why I say that, because I remember just getting older and going to other schools, how other students who were young like me kept saying like, "Is Trent stupid?" or "Is Barrett stupid?" Or I don't think, why do you think I'm stupid? Oh, because that teacher taught you that. I see. So, anyways, my personal story kind of reminds me of, or just stories reminds me of the teachings from a lady named Jane Elliott. She kind of did a blue eye, brown eye experiment that kind of went viral. And when I'm looking at that experiment, it literally reminded me of just several teachers and just like just a nightmare as far as like when I was younger. And I went to different schools, so it wasn't just an isolated school incident. I went to school in Nashville. I went to school in Columbia, Spring Hill, and so I bounced around a lot because I just couldn't get settled. I mean, if you're calling a little student, stupid or breaking it down at a young age, he's not going to take school seriously. He's going to believe it, and that's what I did. I just didn't care about school at that time. Um, but anyways, you know, I look at celebrities now, or some celebrities now. Me personally, I probably lean more towards conservative values as far as like politics, but I mean, I know that the Democrats and the Republicans are both corrupt, in my opinion, but I do lean more towards conservative values. But, you know, some people that I kind of started following a little bit just because I like their opinions on certain things. One being Officer Tatum and Candace Owens. I think they have some very good takes on certain subjects. But when I'm listening to them talk about, race, one thing that kind of bugs me is how they try to just act like race isn't there and race issues aren't just there. And to my understanding, they're both, Christian or saved. Me personally, I don't think that these two quite know who they are yet in terms of biblical history. I think that they think that they're Christian, but I don't think they understand the significance between the battles of the Greek influence versus the Hebrew influence and why there's such a tension there. And so when I hear statements from Officer Tatum saying that, race isn't there, I think I agree with them in terms of there's nothing stopping us as far as in this time period as a people to, gather together and, organize and invest in each other and do those type of things. There's nothing stopping us from doing that. But I think it's false when he says that it's just not there because, I mean, if you're black in this country, you've experienced it at one point or another, whether it be on the job or at school. And, depending on what the situation is, it can be kind of heartbreaking sometimes. So I just think that that's not, again, for me, it's not victim mentality. It's just calling out facts. Like, like I said, I have plenty of friends who I grew up with who were white who, for the most part, they came across as being friends, but they're racist as all get out. You know what I mean? And I think that's real dangerous to have friends around you who it's kind of like they smile in your face, but they secretly hate you, kind of a thing. But um, when I was in college at TSU, I wrote a paper that interested me on a certain topic, which was I wish I still had it. I lost it, but basically, I was writing about the subject of like post Civil War and where possibly the anger of white racists come from. Because when I'm interacting with a white person that's really racist, in my mind, I'm thinking like, what in the world are you so mad about? You would have thought that you went through slavery or something. It was just like the anger just wasn't making sense to me. But the truth is that the soul can be damaged, um, like the body can. So when I think about the Civil War or post Civil War, the South lost, and they lost family and friends in that war, like everybody else did. But to put things into perspective, to my understanding, um, there's only a small percentage of people in the South as a whole who really had like slave and money influence. And usually those people went hand in hand with politics or prominent leadership in the communities. The rest of the South were poor, you know, or indigent servants trying to work their way up into the system. Like, I'm gonna work this land with slave master, but one day I'll have my own slaves in my own land. And so that was like their American dream. So if you can imagine when the Civil War was over, um, and then you see these former black slaves getting money and getting more money than you've ever had, it probably made you feel some type of way. So to my understanding at that time, the politicians slash real leaders that had real money in the slave trade at that time, they convinced the poor whites that, well, at least you're not a Negro, or at least you're better than a slave. And I think that was a real, because I mean, the thing is, those people were angry and they were trying to put the blame on somebody. I think a movie that comes to my mind is Gone with the Wind. Um, that movie kind of portrays the white side of how they felt about it. And I think that they were angry, and they probably would have put their anger towards the people who started trying to go to war in the first place. But to steer that anger away from them, the politicians were slick enough to basically steer that anger towards, well, at least you're better than a Negro, pretty much. And so I had a friend, um, for me, I kind of looked at him as like the characters from Remember the Titans. I was Julius and he was, Gary Bertier. We were just two alphas in our community that kind of came together and became friends. Well, if I'm gonna be your friend, like, I feel like, we obviously come from different cultures and whatnot. So I'm trying to like better understand your mindset when it comes to certain things. So I started talking about the Confederate flag with him. Now, keep in mind, this person at least has told me several times that he doesn't believe in God. So, but with him being from a certain area and believing a certain way, I just, we started talking about the Confederate flag one day. And one of the first things he tried to justify was say that like the red in the Confederate flag represents the blood of Christ or something to that nature. And I stopped him right there. I wasn't even one trying to hear the rest of it, because I'm like, dude, you just said that you don't believe in God like that. So I'm not following you when it comes to like what you really believe in. I think we all need to be honest why we believe in certain things. Most of it is a sense of pride. Me personally, I when I was growing up, I hung on to more of the Egyptian culture, because I used to get make fun of black people about how dark skinned I was. So once I found out that the Egyptians were darker than me potentially, like, it created a sense of pride, and like, I'm gonna stick to this Egyptian culture to remind myself that I was a king or a pharaoh. So pride can enter in different ways, and it's not just, we just have to ask ourselves, like, why do we believe in certain things, and where's the root cause of that? Is all I'm getting at. But there was another pastor on the upcoming church I was going to at the time. It was more of like a smaller church. I was on the up and coming church, and I really enjoyed most of their teachings. But I remember the pastor himself. I don't know if he felt some type of way about me. I remember one time, I 'cause I would come and go from that church. I wouldn't just stay there consistently. So this one time he hadn't seen me in a while, and he literally said, Trent, I got a mind to beat you. You need to come back to church more often. And in my mind, because I knew the history of just all that racial history in terms of the church and how they beat it out of you and kind of a thing. I'm like, you can try, dude. You ain't gonna beat me. You can try. But that was the thoughts in my head that I had at the time. But I quit going to that church because I realized that you just gotta be careful who's leading you. Like you gotta read that word for yourself. You have to understand the voice of God for yourself, and then test the spirits on who is leading you. Not everybody that's calling your pastor is leading you in the right way, so you need to test them by the fruits of their nature. In this case, this particular pastor was preaching about slavery and how basically back in the day, slavery in the Bible was different from slavery that we knew in America. And, I think anybody that's read the Bible understands the story of Moses and those slaves, and they weren't indentured servants. Pharaoh did not want to let those people go for 400 years, you know? So, again, when we're teaching, we need to be really honest about and be careful about what we're teaching, in my opinion, when it comes to not just the educational system, but, in churches and politicians, because, I mean, according to scripture, uh, those preachers and certain people in leadership will be held accountable by the Most High in terms of what you're teaching and why you're teaching it. So, anyways, you know, uh, there's a um, there's a movie called. I remember I was at Spring Hill Elementary School in Tennessee at the time. I think it was like maybe like kindergarten or first grade or third grade. I can't remember how old I was at the time, but I remember watching this movie called Perfect Harmony, and I think it's a very, very good movie. I recommend to go see it. It's an old school movie, but I recommend to go see it because it kind of hints at towards like the conflict between races and like what's taught in schools and breaking barriers through segregation at that time. Me personally, just to make it very clear, I'm not about unity in terms of let's all come together and just be on the same page because, to my understanding, Scripture says that Yah is coming back to separate the sheep from the goats. So, in this message, I'm talking to the sheep. If you're, or at least if you're trying to be a sheep in Yah's kingdom, I think that if you are trying to be a sheep in Yah's kingdom, you need to ask Him, "Am I teaching the truth to my children? If I'm an authority figure, am I representing His morals in the position that He has given me?" But yeah, the movie Perfect Harmony just made me think about, you know, how we could be if we like put down our, whatever your mom and dad taught you. Sometimes you gotta look past that and just see things for what it was. So in this case, for me, when I was thinking about my friend Bucky, we got along. We literally got along. We were like in kindergarten or somewhere in first grade, something like that. And we used to play every day. But because of what mama taught him and then what my parents may have taught me, I mean, eventually we split up. So I can't say that it was race that split us up, but it did make me think about, you know, um, could I really be friends with this dude if his mom is teaching him hate behind closed doors, pretty much. Different people got different reasons for being racist. Some say, "Oh, these black people rape me," or this and that. Racism is a spirit, and it's a principality, to be honest. And a white person can have it, a black person can have it, Hispanic, Asian, like a lot of different races can have it. But racism is rooted in the sin of pride. That American pride. You can't tell us what to do. This is who we are. All that culture. Pride leads to destruction, and whether we want to admit it or not, America needs to do a deep soul searching as far as like what type of pride we are rooted in, because I think that it will be the destruction of Mystery Babylon. To be honest, again, I'm not here to stop biblical prophecy. I'm just here to raise awareness and let you go read these things on your own, pretty much. But um, what I do know is that when I think about how Tennessee passed a law of um, basically not teaching about the KKK anymore in schools. To me, the danger that I see in that is history does seem to repeat itself. Just because my generation learned some things like from the Perfect Harmony movie, for example, it doesn't mean that you take away certain teachings and all of a sudden a couple, 2, 3 generations later, they forget what the forefathers have taught them. Um, Recently, I was looking at, Joseph and his brothers, as far as like the one of the 12 brothers of the 12 tribes of Israel, how he got sold into slavery and whatnot in Egypt. Um, I was thinking about how he led his family into Egypt and how he had favor with Pharaoh at the at his time, as far as like when he entered into Egypt, and how the Egyptians and how the Hebrews fell out of favor with Egypt once there was another Pharaoh who didn't know Joseph. So that's what I mean by history repeating itself if you don't teach or pass down certain things. So this Pharaoh didn't know Joseph or didn't care to know about Joseph, and therefore enslaved the people who basically enter into Egypt as Joseph's family and then turn them into slaves. But I mean, we can't be mad about that, because if you read about Abraham and what God promised him, God already told Abraham that your seed's going to be slaves. So that's just all biblical prophecy pretty much. But um, in my opinion, the conflict of race in this country is deeper than just skin color. Um, I said it before in a couple of other movies about the history of the Hittites and the Trojan Wars and just all those different things. I feel like it's just deeper than race. It's about what God you believe in. Make no mistake, the people that rule this side of the West, they know exactly who we are. We just don't know who we are. You know, I know that there are certain people who are trying to hold on to the American dream and make it seem like, like, don't get me wrong, this is my home. I don't know any other territory other than this place. But I can't deny the actions and the attitude that we've taken on. And it's not good, guys. Like all that hate, I mean, especially for the ones that claim to love Christ or know Him, do you really honestly think you can meet God with that attitude in your heart? Especially when He's the one that created us, He created you and me. So who are you to try to bash His creation? If you got that big of a beef of it, why don't you ask Him why He created us this way? I don't know. I didn't create myself. You didn't create yourself either. So we need to address that racist spirit is what I'm saying. That's rooted in the spirit of pride. Um, if you're going to be mad at anybody, you need to be mad at the educational system. You need to be mad at your religious leaders, whether you be Catholic, Protestant, whatever. You need to be mad at the political leaders who uphold these laws to create segregation behind closed doors. There's a lot of people you can be mad at, but I think that maturing is just looking yourself in the mirror and really trying to ask yourself, why do you believe in something? Is it because your mom and dad taught you something, or do you really believe those things? Because most of these people I talked about, you know, we were friends. I think we naturally got along with each other. Literally, like remember the Titans with Julius and Gary Bertier. We just naturally got along with each other. But if not careful, the community in different aspects tries to rip you apart out of their ignorance. So that's why it's important for you to stand on your own in terms of certain things. One thing I want to talk about real quick before I leave is, well, actually, you know what? I'll say that for another video. I'm gonna be making another part about kind of like my experience with sports and whatnot. But stay tuned for that. But until next time, just stay blessed, stay prayed up, keep your eyes on y'all. You know, just keep your eyes on them guys. I don't care if you're white, black, Indian, Asian, whatever, Hispanic. It doesn't matter. Like He made all of us, and I just say, keep your eyes on Him during this time because it's getting serious out here. But besides all that, y'all stay blessed and God bless y'all and y'all peace.